I'd like to introduce Kathryn Pritchett. This is my first time interviewing her, and I'd like to say welcome to our YouTube channel. Kathryn's completed her first novel, The Casket Maker's Other Wife, and has begun the querying process. I hope that I'm going to be at that point pretty soon, and I'm hoping she can give me and you some pointers on the process. So, Kathryn, first of all, why have you chosen to pursue the traditional publishing route versus the independent or self-public route?
Thanks, Charity. It's so good to be here with you today. That's an interesting question. I think because I felt like, though this was a personal family story, the gist of the story, or at least the origin of the story, is that my great-great-grandparents were polygamous. And I was always very curious about why, especially my great-great-grandmother, chose to be a second wife in a polygamous marriage. Mm-hmm. So though it was a very personal family story, I thought it was a big enough story that it was worth taking a shot at traditional publication. I thought there would be an audience out there for this story. People are very curious about Mormons and practicing polygamy, which they haven't done since the 1890s, at least in the mainstream Mormon church. But I'm always asked about that when people find out that that's my background. Mm-hmm. I also thought the topic was of interest to a large group because it has the universal theme of a damsel in distress. The protagonist is abandoned by her husband at the beginning of the story, and she has to figure out what to do next. She's got small children, she's pregnant. Some Mormon missionaries come to town, and she follows them to the American West. She's in Switzerland at the time. So it's a woman, and she ends up marrying one of these missionaries who converts her. It's a story about a woman making decisions based on limited choices, and I thought that would resonate across a broad audience.
Sounds very good. Now, how are you going about finding which agents you're going to query?
Well, two ways, really. First, I've pitched at conferences. I've gone to several writing conferences, and I've been lucky enough to have every agent I've ever pitched to ask to see the book. Again, I think people are interested in the general idea of this story. Mm-hmm. Then I've also researched agents on my own. Several years ago, I took a workshop that was featured through the Historical Novel Society about querying from a woman named Kathryn Pritchett. And as part of that workshop, she gave us tools for compiling lists of agents, including online resources like Publishers Marketplace. And she also shared a spreadsheet for collecting the information that you research about agents, and that's helped me organize my research.
Great. Is there any specific criteria that you're using to select who you're going to send your query to?
Well, the main thing is they need to be interested in historical fiction. And that was something I really didn't know about before I started querying, is that all agents are not interested in all books. Mm-hmm. Historical fiction is its own genre, and there are agents who know it well, know what sells, know who they can sell it to, and so that's the main thing, is to find someone who's interested in historical fiction. Who can both.
It was kind of interesting because I pitched at a conference, and she did historical fiction, and she's like, I'm not interested in your era. So, I mean, even within historical fiction, they're really specific.
They are really specific, yes. Last year, or 2 years ago, the Historical Novel Society conference, that was a question that came up with agents, and one woman said, even though it's still selling, I can't look at one more World War II novel. You know, there are definitely sub-genres within the genre that certain agents are interested in. Yeah, and that's
for sure.
So I've just started pitching, really, and the people who I've realized that some people who just out of hand are not interested in the book. This isn't their time period. They may do historical fiction, but it isn't their time period. They're not interested in something with a religious subplot to it, basically. So it's not for them. And you want to get somebody who's interested in what you write and willing to be your cheerleader. So that's a little more hit or miss. But because I know that now, I am starting to look at agents, target agents who have sold either a book about a religious character or someone with there are several books out there that I use as comps that have some Mormon component to it. Mm-hmm. So I don't have to reinvent the wheel and explain to them what this is all about.
Yeah, that definitely makes it more difficult, because it's like they'll just put historical fiction and you're like, but but
Historical.
what historical fiction? It's a big category.
A big category.
I wish they would get some more specific.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing over time that your query letter has evolved a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me how you've changed your letter to get more responses?
I can. Again, I was lucky to take that early workshop with Kathryn Pritchett, and she now has a Facebook group that you can subscribe to for a fee. She does a wonderful job of helping you hone your query letter.
Mm-hmm.
As part of that early workshop, she offered a short one-on-one consultation on her queries. So I ran my first versions by her, and she was just brutal. And that was helpful to have an outside eye look at it and say, basically it was too bland. It was too lost in the weeds of the historical period I was interested in. And she's a marketing agent by profession, though she's also written a book. And she just was really good at saying, drilling down to some of the story's more exciting elements and narrowing it down. You know, a query is very short, so you really have to use every word to sell the book, and she had a knack for doing that. So she also helped me emphasize things in my resume that would resonate with a query, with an agent. For example, I was a journalist for many years, and I put that in the query letter, but as we talked, I said I'd also written a newspaper column. She said, well, how long did you write the column for? And I said, oh, probably 15 years or so. She said, 15 years? I mean, that's important to put that in there because an agent reading that will know, oh, this person's written a lot. They've met deadlines a lot. This is somebody that I can work with and depend on. And I would never have thought to put the time period that I'd done that newspaper column in without her suggesting that. So that's another way it's changed.
Well, you always have to appreciate people that, you know, get down to the nitty gritty and tell you exactly what they think, because otherwise it's not really all that helpful.
No, if they just say, oh, this is great, I'd love to read your book, that doesn't really help you if it doesn't inform you and change it, because it's going to go out to a stranger who doesn't know you from Adam or Eve, and they need to be sold on the topic and the material you're presenting to them. Yeah.
So what mistakes do you feel like you've made during the querying process? You know, what things have you just tweaked and you wouldn't do that again?
You know, I've thought about that. Of course, every time I get a rejection back, I think, oh, why did I do it this way? And I've often read published authors who say they started querying too soon. I think that's the first thing you think is, oh, I shouldn't have sent this yet. The feedback they've given me is helpful and I'll tweak it and then it'd be better. And then I wish I could resubmit it. And I've had several agents say that. My book was long to begin with. I pared it down quite a bit, and there are some that I will resubmit to. But I'm also pretty sanguine about it. I feel like the people who didn't take it to begin with, we probably weren't going to be a fit to be. I feel very comfortable that the query is a strong letter. I've had people reject the manuscript but say, "Don't, your writing's good, and the query's good. It's just I'm not interested in this particular time period or topic." So I know the query is strong, and I appreciate that when people have asked, several have asked for the full manuscript, and they've been, even if they've passed on it, ultimately they've been good enough to give me good feedback, and that feedback I've incorporated into the next pass through of the manuscript. So there's a phrase that goes something like, every no gets me closer to a yes. Have you heard that before? And often that yes is better than the thing you get the no for. And I've certainly had that play out in other parts of my life where I was disappointed that I didn't get the thing the brass ring I was reaching for, but a bigger brass ring came along or a better fit. So I don't feel like I've made too many mistakes because I got the query so tight before I sent it out.
Oh, good.
But I would say, you know, don't take no as the ultimate no. I guess that's the other thing. I'm still working on what my rejection ritual will be because rejection is just part of this game. And the first, you know, I've had probably 6 or 7 that I thought were pretty close, and then they didn't end up panning out. And the first time that happened, I was just floored. I mean, and it was like fetal position. I'll never publish this book. How can I go forward? And I'm much more matter of fact about it now. You know, if I get a rejection, I write a quick thank you. I feel like that's good karma. Somebody's taking the time to read and look at your book. I put things into a file. I put the rejection letters into a file, and it's good to go back and look at those because I realized, oh, they weren't as bad as I thought. They're actually pretty positive in that rejection letter. I target someone new to query. I get to work on my new work in progress, which is the best way to deal with rejection. But I'm still fine tuning this rejection ritual. I think I need to do something, especially once we get out of lockdown, where I can go out and do something that has nothing to do with my book and treat myself, because it's really brutal. And my sympathies to you and everybody else out there trying to pitch their book and get the interest of an agent or a publisher. It's hard work.
Yeah, and you have a great attitude. I mean, that is kind of what you have to do, is realize that it wasn't going to be right anyway.
Right. And something better will come along, or the better fit will come along. I really do believe that.
Yeah, and that's great that they've been getting back to you and giving you feedback.
It is good. I feel lucky that way. A lot of people never hear back. And there are certainly, I've got queries out there right now I haven't heard back from, but I have been lucky to get responses and mostly positive responses, just not the right fit yet. So, and a lot of people saying, I know this will be published. Somebody else is going to snap this up. It's just not for me. So
yeah,
I appreciate that when they don't need to say that to me. And I appreciate any positive dribbles that come my way. So great. So I wish you and everybody else who's querying good luck. We all need to just get into a big room and have a group hug once the pandemic's over and say, atta girl, good thing that you're trying this. So.
I agree. I did the one pitch just because I was at a conference, and I just, thought, well, I might as well get the experience, right? Because I wasn't anywhere close.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like eye-opening to just be like, well, I'm not even interested in your time period, so I don't even care to hear about it.
And then you're stuck with that person for a while, trying to make chit chat at that point.
Oh. Yeah, it was kind of, it was a weird vibe, let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm. So what was your takeaway from that? What did you learn from that experience?
She did give me, I said, well, at least, I paid for this. She wasn't even really actually going to talk to me. Mm-hmm. I said, well, I did pay for my time, because you do. And I said, at least tell me what I should be doing. And so she gave me some good feedback on, why on earth are you talking about your antagonist? This is a story about your protagonist. Don't even bring him up, which I thought was really good feedback, just right out the gate. So I, at least know that.
Yeah, I think you can learn from every interaction you have with someone, and it can be painful sometimes, but I've adjusted and tweaked my novel every time I've heard something like that. Sometimes you take it with a grain of salt and say, oh, I don't quite agree with it. But for the most part, people are usually telling you something that's helpful. If it didn't work for them in some way, then you need to at least consider it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, Kathryn, for joining me today. And I look forward to interviewing you again.
Thanks. Great to talk with you. Talk to you soon, CV.
All right.